Today I'm going to talk to you about the first past the post voting system and discuss why it is such a bad system. First past the post is a system to elect a single person to a single position. It's a winner-takes-all electoral system. In general elections in the UK, we have 650 separate first past the post elections, and the 650 winners become the members of Parliament. I want to explicitly separate the two main problems with first past the post now, so it's clear what I'm talking about. One is that for a winner-takes-all electoral system, where you elect a single person to a single position, it is very poor. That's what I'll be largely concentrating on in this video, and that's also what the alternative vote referendum in 2011 was about. Alternative vote is another single winner-takes-all system. The other problem isn't about first past the post per se, but about whether it's a good idea to have 650 separate winner-takes-all elections and put together the results to make a national parliament. Doing this won't deliver proportional representation, whichever winner-takes-all system you use. Although I'll touch upon proportional representation in this video, I'm going to save the main details for a later video. This video is largely about first past the post as a single winner-takes-all system. First past the post is a very simple system. Each voter has a ballot with a list of candidate names and picks just one of these to vote for. The candidate with the most votes wins the election. What could be wrong with that? Well, quite a lot, as it turns out. The problems start when there are similar candidates standing. Let's say a group of friends are deciding on a restaurant to eat at. The restaurants act as a candidate in this situation. They've narrowed down their choices to Pizza Shed, Pizza Train, and the all-you-can-eat broccoli and sprout buffet. Let's say these are their first preferences. Pizza Shed, 3 votes. Pizza Train, 3 votes. All-you-can-eat broccoli and sprout buffet, 4 votes. In a first past the post election, the buffet would win. By first past the post logic, it is the most popular choice, and that's where they should go to eat. But actually, 6 out of the 10 people want to go for pizza, and in all probability they prefer to go to the other pizza restaurant than eat broccoli and sprouts. But first past the post doesn't let them say this. Alternative votes and many other systems allow people to do more than specify a single favourite, and so ensure that the 6-4 pizza majority get their way. And this is a very big problem for first past the post voting. If there are 2 similar candidates standing, then there is a risk that a less popular candidate will get elected because the votes get split across the 2 candidates. Obviously the example I use was very contrived, with 2 of the options being nearly identical. But the general problem that comes from only being able to say anything about one candidate arises whenever there are more than 2 candidates. It always makes sense for a voter to vote for the candidate that they prefer of the 2 that are leading the opinion polls and ignore any greater preferences they might have, or they risk their vote being wasted. And not only does first past the post encourage voters to ignore their favourite if they're not a likely winner, it also discourages potential candidates from standing in case they take votes away from the front runner that are closest to them politically and cause them to lose. All this leads to 2-party domination, and that helps to explain why the Conservatives and Labour have dominated politics in this country for so long. Other parties such as the Liberal Democrats and UKIP may occasionally gain a certain amount of popularity, but never enough to win a large number of seats. It's very hard when you have an electoral system that discourages voting for anyone other than the 2 favourites, and even discourages outsiders from standing in the first place. So in summary, first past the post responds horribly to similar candidates standing, encourages voters to ignore candidates other than the 2 frontrunners, regardless of who their actual favourite is, encourages candidates to not even stand, and leads to 2-party domination. It asks for as little information as possible from a voter, but does not encourage even this little bit of information to be a true reflection of the voter's views. So is there anything good about first past the post? Well, as I said earlier, simplicity. It's certainly a simple system, but it needs a lot more than that to rescue its democratic credentials. It doesn't have a monopoly on simplicity anyway. For example, approval voting is about as simple as first past the post, and avoids many of its problems. In approval voting, instead of picking just one candidate to vote for, you can vote for or approve as many or as few as you like. Approving your favourite will never count against you because you can approve your favourite of the frontrunners as well. but I'll discuss approval voting in more detail in a later video. Something that proponents of first past the post will say is that unlike other systems, it is one person, one vote. You simply cast a single vote for your favourite candidate, and that's how it should be. Well, if you think one person, one vote simply means name one candidate then shut up, then certainly first past the post is the system for you. But that's a very simplistic way of interpreting one person, one vote, and something I don't see any reason to demand from a voting system. Your vote is the ballot you cast, whether you're simply putting an X by one candidate, submitting a ranking of all the candidates, or giving them scores out of 10, or whatever. One person, one vote, when interpreted sensibly, just means that each person is allowed to submit one ballot. No one gets an extra ballot. Don't be taken in by mindless rhetoric. Another supposed advantage of first past the post is that it makes majority governments likely, reducing the chance of coalitions. Well, there are a few points here. To address this fully would be to encroach on the subject of my later video on proportional representation. But to cut a long story short, it's debatable whether a single-party majority government formed from a minority of votes is a good thing, or even whether it's particularly democratic. Also, coalitions are not a recipe for chaos, as some people might think. Most European countries have proportional representation, which generally does not lead to a single-party majority government. And there's no obvious evidence coming from these countries that the UK model is better. But also, it's not first past the post per se that gives these majority governments when they do occur. It's the fact that we are putting together the results from hundreds of separate winner-takes-all elections. And it should be clear by now that first past the post is awful as a winner-takes-all system. So to summarise, first past the post is a terrible system for electing a single person to a single position. That's the case whether it's to elect a member of parliament, or a position on a committee, or anything else. And it's not just about electing people to positions. If you're having a vote with your friends about where to go out, a first past the post election would be a terrible way of doing it. I haven't really discussed the alternative winner-takes-all systems here. I will save that for another video. I think alternative vote is superior, but I also think there are better systems than that, and going through all the alternatives now would make this video too long. As long as we're clear that first past the post is very bad, then that's good enough for now. I will also be discussing in another video whether putting together the results of hundreds of separate winner-takes-all elections is the best way to make up a country's parliament, even if we use a better system than first past the post for the individual elections. And that's where I will be discussing proportional representation. I think that's largely it. Well, there is one more thing. We had a referendum in the UK on electoral reform in 2011, and first past the post was the resounding winner. Surely that's a good reason to keep it. Well, first of all, the referendum wasn't on electoral reform per se. We were only given alternative vote as an alternative. And while I do consider alternative vote to be superior to first past the post, I think there are much better systems out there, so I'm not going to spend too much time defending it. Secondly, most of the arguments from the No to AV campaign were based on nonsense, rhetoric, and even outright lies, and that tarnished the campaign. So in my next video on voting systems, I'm going to play you some clips from a couple of the Conservative Party's videos in the campaign against alternative vote and to keep first past the post. And I will have some fun pointing out their lies. And that is all for now. Thank you for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, you can subscribe to my channel. Even better, you can buy my book, Stuff and Consciousness, Connecting Matter and Mind, by me, Toby Pereira. It's all about how your seemingly non-physical thoughts and feelings can come from your physical brain. It's available in paperback and also on Kindle. Links are available in the video description below, or you can visit my website at www.tobypereira.co.uk. Thank you.